In November 2024, the vice president of the Philippines said out loud that if she were assassinated, she had already given orders for the president to be killed too. She later said it was not a threat, but sit with what it means that a sitting vice president could say those words about a sitting president. 2 years earlier, they ran on the same ticket. They called it UNITEAM. Philippine politics runs on one quiet rule. Powerful families do not destroy each other in public. They make deals, they share power, they protect their own. In 2022, two of the biggest names in the country, Marcos and Duterte, joined forces and won by a landslide. By 2025, that rule was breaking. This is not just two leaders fighting. It is the sound of a system cracking, and we are all standing inside the building. It started as a machine built to win. Ferdinand Marcos Jr., son of the late dictator; Sara Duterte, daughter of the firebrand president from Davao. Two political dynasties, North and South, combined into one ticket. In June 2022, they won in a landslide. Marcos took the presidency, Sara took the vice presidency, and a cabinet post as education secretary. On stage, both families stood together. It looked unbreakable. To understand the size of this alliance, you have to understand the families behind it. The Dutertes built their power in the South. The Marcoses carried one of the most famous and most controversial names in the country. Together they controlled the top two seats in the land, but alliances built only to win do not always survive what comes after winning. Watch how fast it turned. At first, the cracks were small. Allies of both camps began trading public jabs. The two principals grew distant. Then the distance became official. In mid-2024, Sara Duterte resigned from the Marcos cabinet. She gave up her post as education secretary. She declined to give a reason. A vice president walking away from the president's cabinet is not a small thing. It was the first public sign that UNITEAM was over. The partnership that won an election was now a fault line running through the entire government. Then came the scandal that lit the fuse. A massive corruption issue tied to flood control projects, money meant to protect towns from flooding that allegedly never did its job. In his 2025 address, even President Marcos publicly called out officials accused of profiting. The hearings pulled in big names, contractors, senators, officials from past and present administrations. The deeper the dig, the more the public anger grew, and the people moved. Tens of thousands filled Luneta to protest corruption. The anger was not aimed at one camp. It was aimed at a system that kept failing them. This is the backdrop the Marcos-Duterte fight was happening against. A public that was already furious. Different groups, different banners, all converging on the same ground. The street had become a pressure cooker. The conflict moved from the streets into the institutions. The House of Representatives opened impeachment proceedings against Vice President Sara Duterte. The complaints centered on alleged graft and the misuse of hundreds of millions of pesos in confidential funds. The hearings were tense and at times emotional. This was no longer a quiet falling out between two families. It was a formal attempt to remove the second highest official in the country from office. The House impeached her. The case moved to the Senate, which sits as the impeachment court. The trial is set to begin July 6, 2026. Mark that date. It is one of the moments this whole story is building toward. While Sara fought for her political life, her father faced a fight of his own. Former President Rodrigo Duterte, arrested on a warrant from the International Criminal Court over the deadly drug war that defined his time in power. The man who once seemed untouchable was now in the custody of an international court. For the Duterte family, the pressure was now coming from every direction at once. Impeachment for the daughter, an international warrant for the father, and the alliance that once protected them was gone. The chaos spread to the Senate, the very body that would judge Sara Duterte's impeachment. And what happened there in 2026 was unlike anything in the chamber's history. In May 2026, Senator Alan Peter Cayetano seized the Senate presidency in a surprise move, backed by Duterte allies. But his hold on the post was shaky from the start. The The chamber split into rival camps. Then the numbers turned. A rival bloc moved against him. On June 17th, 2026, in a special session called by President Marcos, Cayetano conceded and Senator Win Gatchalian was elected Senate President. It was the fifth leadership change in this single Congress. A record. The body meant to be stable was anything but.
Why does a Senate leadership fight matter to the Marcos Duterte story? Because this is the court that will try Sara Duterte. Who controls the Senate could shape how her trial unfolds. Nothing here is happening in isolation. Through all of this, here is where the public stood. In the first quarter of 2026, Vice President Sara Duterte held a 55% approval rating. President Marcos sat at 36%. But here is the part the headline numbers hide. Sara was ahead, yes. Yet the same pollster noted her lead over Marcos had been narrowing over the past year. She was still on top. She was no longer pulling away. Both leaders were carrying damage. With both leaders weakened and the families under pressure, the fear of instability grew. There was open talk of destabilization, rumors of plots, and in a country that remembers people power and past coup attempts, those words carry weight. This is where we have to be careful and honest. The armed forces of the Philippines publicly denied any destabilization effort and said the military remained, in their words, whole and united. There were claims and counterclaims about plots and threats. What is on the record is this. Sara Duterte made a conditional threat on video in 2024. The government has spoken of destabilization fears. The military has denied being part of any plot. Those are three separate things. Be suspicious of anyone who blends them into one tidy story, including us. We are showing you what is confirmed and labeling what is not. The truth is calmer than the rumors, but still serious. Two damaged leaders, a furious public, a trial date approaching, and a military that says it stands with the Constitution, not with any one person. So where does it stand today? Marcos is still president, governing a country angry about corruption. Sara Duterte is still vice president, awaiting an impeachment trial. Her father faces an international court, and the alliance that once swept them into power is finished. This is not the end of the story. July 6th is coming. The trial, the street, the surveys, the courts, all of it is still moving. But before we find out what happens next, stop, because there is something here that matters more than who wins.
Okay, let me step out of the narrator voice for a second and just talk to you. If you watch all of that and your first thought was which side is right, I get it. That is how we are trained to watch politics here. Pick a color, pick a family, defend them like a fan defends a team. But I want to ask you to do something harder. Look at our country for a second, the whole thing. When we fight about Marcos and Duterte, we draw lines. North against South, one family against another, your region against mine. But zoom out. Pull all the way back from up here. All those lines we fight over, they get small. What is left is one set of islands, one people, us. The leaders at the top will rise and fall. Some will go to trial, some will be forgotten. That is politics. It moves on. But this stays. This is ours to keep or to wreck. To the young people watching, this mess becomes yours. The debt, the broken trust, the habits, all of it gets handed to you. You did not break it, but you will decide if it stays broken. This is not a burden, that is power. Use it. Learn how this works. Ask questions. Do not let anyone hand you an enemy and tell you not to think. To the older ones watching, you have seen this before. The same cycle, the same promises, same fights between powerful names. You know these things. The young ones do not. Tell them not who to hate, how to think. That is the inheritance that actually matters. Here's all I am really asking. You can support Marcos, you can support Duterte, you can trust neither. That is your right. And I'm not here to take it from you. But underneath the color you pick, remember what comes first. Before the party, before the family, before the region. You are Filipino. There too. And no politician, no matter how loud or how loved, is bigger than the country they are fighting over. So watch them closely, question them hard, hold all of them the same standard, not because you hate them, because you love this place more than you love any of them. Salamat sa panonood.